Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Kyle Juice Michalski, Quentin Q. Crisco, Sonny Verma, and the one and only Ron Luce. Bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
It's a different voice, but not a different crew. I am Ron Luce. I am your host for tonight. This thing's going to go off the rails at least once because we have a lot to talk about. This was a weird Bears game. It was a weird Bears game, but I am Ron Luce. I am hosting tonight. Q is off doing, adult things and being a human being outside of the Bears on Tap show. But we're in this together tonight because I am Ron Luce, and I am joined by this guy, Mr. Sonny Verma. Sonny, my friend, I'm excited for the show. We're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna dive deep into this thing here today because it was a loss. It was a weird loss. It was, I don't think any of us prepared for before this show here tonight. Let's get into it. What are you feeling right now in this moment, post 2 hours after the game has ended now? What are you thinking?
Ron, for me, it's like you say we didn't prepare for this, but I feel like I've prepared for this for 40 years of my Bears fandom. It was supposed to be different now.
It was.
Now with the new quarterback, with this super talented offense that we had, we're not supposed to have games like what just happened today. And, I know we're going to get into this. I know we're going to talk about this game, but, we played awful. We played like butt the entire game. We all of a sudden take the lead at the end, and shame on me. Shame on me for getting optimistic at the end. Telling myself, yeah, this squad is a little bit different. These Bears have grown up. These aren't the Bears that I've been used to rooting for the past couple of decades. We got a quarterback now. We've got a decent head coach now. All of that out the window on a last-second Hail Mary play, and all of a sudden I reverted back to the miserable Bears fan I've been for the better part of my life. How's your night, Ron?
I think I'm on the same wavelength as you, Sonny, because here's the problem. We are sitting here and we're like, wow, they drove down the field late and Caleb Williams struggled all game. He did nothing right if you watch the film objectively. But all of a sudden they drove down when it meant the most and they scored. And then here we are with, I called it from the Bears on Tap count. I called it the most Bears, that's so Bears. This was the that's so Bears ending of the season. Because, Sonny, as you mentioned, right? We've been mentally preparing for this our entire lives. We are used to heartbreak. We are used to a trip to DC or a trip anywhere for that matter, ending in miserable feelings. And that's the problem with tonight, is maybe they didn't play their best game. Maybe they didn't do everything that we would hope they did out of a bye week. We got used to Coach Eberflus being a genius out of the bye week. But the defense played well enough.
Absolutely.
The offense was, although garbage, still found a way. They still had a chance to win this game. But at the end of the day, maybe it was a defensive back getting too distracted by the crowd. Maybe it was just the football gods being the biggest bullies on a Sunday night. The Bears find a way to lose this game. And this is the heartbreaker, I think, so far this season, Sonny. Truly. Because they had a chance. Yes, they didn't play a great game, but they still had a chance. And to me, that's the sign of a good football team. But when you get that kind of ending, where it's a more or less a coin toss, right? That's what a Hail Mary is. They call it a Hail Mary for a reason. You pray to the gods. You point your head to the sky. You make sure your chin is angular. And sometimes the gods have a weird way of answering you. And in the Bears fans' favor tonight, it wasn't positive because of the Noah Brown Hail Mary that ended this game. And that's where we are. That's where we are, Sonny. We're going to go off the rails before we get on the rails because we just have to vet this thing out. Just unleash it, Sonny. I need to hear every little being how you feel in your chest right now.
Again, Ron, this is how silly I am, right? For the better part of that game, for the 90% of that game, the Commanders were the better team on that football field.
They were. They absolutely were.
Every time they drove down, every time they got in the red zone, we held them to 3 points. This the second highest scoring offense in the entire league. The defense gave up 1 touchdown today. And so, as dominating as Washington looked, and in the back of my mind, I was almost like, hey, they keep settling for field goals. They keep getting 3. You can't win games with field goals. We're playing I'm going to keep saying it all night. We're playing like butt right now. And yet, we're only 2 scores away, despite this dominance. And then, what happens? Caleb not only has 1 touchdown drive, essentially he has 2. One, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, gets taken away with one of handing it off to your backup center, who probably has never taken a handoff in his entire life. But then Caleb gets another chance, and guess what he does? He drives it right back. And then here at foolish Sonny, it's different now. We're entering a new era of Chicago Bears football.
Mm-hmm.
And now, here you and I are, Ron. I have no words. I have no words.
That's the craziest part, Sonny. I think we're going to do this show, and I think you and I are both going to feel at least a little better, and I hope everybody listening along with us feels the same way. But we're all going to sit here tomorrow morning, and we're going to reflect. And that's when it's going to really hurt. Because this team that, let's be real, we're gonna channel how we both feel right now as lifetime Bears fans. We've seen a lot of these games, and they go wrong for like one reason or another. It's not like, they hung around and they shouldn't have, and they won it, or maybe they lost it at the last minute and the best team won, blah blah blah. I truly believe this was a game where, yes, the Commanders were the better team on the field from kickoff to end of game. But you saw how legitimate the defense is over the course of a season. They bend and they don't break. They do not break. They're one of the best defenses in the red zone this season.
Yeah.
And then you also have a chance where they scored 4 times, but they were all field goals. You were a 2-possession game the entire way. It was the weirdest feeling as a Bears fan sitting here and going, wow, yeah, of course the Commanders are scoring, but it's a 2-possession game. If things go right, the Bears still have a chance, and they got to that point at the end of the game. And it made me as a Bears fan believe that this is different. And I think it still is. I'm going to give a little shining hope of positivity here. I think it still is. But holy hell, if the football gods did not want Bears fans to suffer on this Sunday because we got a little too high in their minds, because that's just how it goes, right? We're going to settle on the fact that this is how it goes, and we need to keep ourselves grounded because we are Chicago Bears fans. We got a little too high after that Jaguars game. They had to bring us back to reality. Because let's be honest, Sonny, if we were sitting here talking about a win tonight, this show would not even be on course. There would be no nicest man or baddest man or anything. You would be watching this show in a panic because you and I'd just be sitting here rambling and rumbling about them winning this game because they came back from behind. So it's this weird conundrum, Sonny. They didn't win, but they did everything they needed to do to get back in the game. And that's where I sit here and I say, maybe, just maybe. Yes, it hurts, but maybe not forever.
But doesn't it make you more confused?
Oh, 1,000%.
Now, at this point, that trade deadline's not too far away from now. Right? It's like 6-2 feels a lot different than 4-3. And we see the flaws on the team. When you saw when that offensive line, we know it has a lack of depth. And then we saw what happened when one guy goes down. And now I'm asking myself in all my group chats, hey, if you're Ryan Poles right now and you see this team, those Lions look very, very good. The NFC North is a very good division. Can I sit here and say confidently that I think the Bears can contend with the other teams in this division right now at 4-3? If we were 6-2, I'd be like, we don't look that good, but 6-2 is 6-2. Let's just see what happens. Now at 4-3, I have stuff to think about. Yeah, I have things to ponder. And, like, is it worth trading a draft pick to bringing in a guy this year when it looks like the team is more than one or two guys away? But on the other hand, this game, as you said, was a Hail Mary away from being 6-2. Maybe we are just one or two more guys away. I don't know what to think anymore.
I don't know either. And that's the I think the travesty of this loss, because to your point, they win this game. You have a bye week in your back pocket already. 8 weeks, 7 games, 5-2. Things look really nice at 5-2. But all of a sudden now, 4-3 is not bad by any stretch of imagination. But you ask the question, as you mentioned, Sonny, what's your risk level of giving up a draft pick to improve this team, right? Is it really worth it? And I think here's the question that I would be asking Ryan Poles if I was in the front office, a coaching staff, whatever. Fan base, truly. This is the most fan question I'm going to ask because it's not dumb. I think it's very educated when I ask it. Is a Myles Garrett, because, they've said Max Crosby's not available. We'll believe it until we see it, right? But if a Myles Garrett's available, does that type of game changer at a premier position make you think a little differently about your draft picks instead of like just holding on to the rebuild? Because for me, I think it does. But this is still a game that you're going to sit here and you are going to seesaw like the fat kid after eating a piece of chocolate cake, where you just need a couple of weights on the other side to give you hope. But at the end of the day, you might go back down. You might have to sit at the bottom and be pessimistic about this team, because are we really about to give up significant draft capital for a player who is in the prime of their career, not just entering their prime, in a player like Myles Garrett? Sonny, I want to really hear what you have to say on that.
The funny thing is, just because of this game, I feel like I'm going to change my mind every 5 minutes. On one hand, I'm going to be thinking, if we have him opposite Sweat, all of a sudden we can get to Jaden a little bit more. All the pressure isn't on Sweat the entire time. We're not counting on Billings next year, to keep repeating the performances that he's been doing. But on the other hand, it's, like you said, Garrett is at the top of his game right now. But at what level is he going to continue to be at the top of his game? 1 year? 2 years? Do you really want to catch him on the backswing when Caleb is on his upswing and we've got all that cap money being given to Garrett? So if we're 6-2 right now, maybe I'm like, let's go for it. But I just don't know how good this team is. We were like, Washington's a good football team, but they're not a great football team. They have their own flaws. But for some reason, our Bears team just could not take advantage of those flaws. And this is something that, you and I have to talk about when it comes to this coaching staff. Everyone knew what the game plan should have been against the Indianapolis Colts. They can't defend the run. What did we not do that game? We could not run the ball. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows the game plan against the Washington Commanders is throw the ball. For some reason, today, we could not throw the ball. Who is that on? Some of it's on Caleb. Caleb played very poorly outside 2 drives. But a lot of that is on the coaching staff, too. We talked about this in the preview for this game. Eberflus has he seems to be a very good after-bye head coach. But today, we looked hopeless out there. And Caleb we're all big Caleb fans, but we have to be willing to call him out when he plays very poorly. And today he missed a lot of passes, a lot of throws that had he connected on, we may not have had to be in the position that we were in at the end of the game.
100%. And that's where, rough because it's still weird. You still have a part of the fan base I don't think that fully believes in Caleb Williams, and I don't necessarily know why that is. But a friend like ours here of the Ghost of Judah tribe, he's not a Caleb fan, and he thinks that Caleb fans. He says they hope you like your nails, but I'll tell you what, I'll take the painted nails from what we've mostly seen. Yes, it's frustrating when the offense doesn't roll, but it's not just on Caleb. It's on the whole unit. I think we're also seeing that Rome Odunze might be the feature back. I think you and Q were spot on in our bye-week episode of future hot takes on this offense. But at the same time, you sit here and you wonder and you go, what was the game plan? Right? There's so many variables that go into it of why did the Bears lose this game? It felt like they should have had every chance to win it because what we've seen with Eberflus and coming out of a bye week, we've seen him succeed against these teams. And I think the Commanders are better than people give them credit for. And, I think it's still fair to kind of poo-poo them and say, hey, look, maybe you haven't been figured out yet. It's 7, 8 games in the bank so far. We'll see what's next. But the Bears had every opportunity to win this game. And I think that's what's most frustrating here, Sonny, because we're one Hail Mary away from singing praises of Caleb and coming back in this game. And, everything, of course, is in hindsight, but they were right there. They were right there this whole way and had a chance to win this game when it mattered most.
But therein lies the frustration, right? Look, you played football, right, in college? I didn't play football, okay? Ron, big brain, football brain. Me, small brain, did not play football. Both, you ask a big football brain guy and a small football brain guy, we both know on a Hail Mary, when you're on defense, when the ball's in the air, the ball comes in your direction, what do, Ron?
Swat it down.
Swat it down. Bat it down. Everyone should know that.
Mm-hmm.
Why are Cole Kmet should have been out there? Keenan Allen should have been out there. We don't need defensive backs down there if they're less than 6 feet tall. Put your tallest guys back there with one job, one objective. I think we had all 3 of our timeouts at the end of the game, didn't we? I don't even think we did. Put a timeout. Like, why not? Just say collectively, you all know your roles here.
Mm-hmm.
You know exactly what to do, or change the personnel. Something. And that's why, we're talking about the frustrations that we have. But I like Eberflus, but this is the sort of thing that just makes me question, is he a good head coach? Or is he just an elite defensive coordinator and okay head coach? And if he's just an okay head coach, is that what we're comfortable with moving forward?
Yeah. And I think that's a fair question to have here because it feels like we've had a couple of these games now where when they win, everything's good because winning cures everything, right? That's just the nature of the sport. But when things do go south, all of a sudden you do ask yourself, is this coaching staff? Is everything going right? Maybe it's not. And I think there's a world where Matt Eberflus is a fine head coach. The question being, though, like you said, Sonny, they had 3 timeouts at the end of that game. Get it right. You've one play. You've one play to defend everything. Put everybody that has a vertical above the average on the human scale out there and say, put the ball in the dirt. Let's go, take a nice flight back to Chicago and celebrate. Instead, that is going to be the most awkward plane ride home imaginable after that loss when that ball glances off the fingertips and into Noah Brown's hands.
Because it's like no unit on that plane can look at the other and be like, we did our jobs, right? Like the football, the defense, they held the game for the entire game, but you can't give up something like that at the end. Like one play is what you need to take care of. You need to bat the ball down. The offense scored, had a fine last 2 drives of the game, but where were they for the first 3.5 quarters? Doing nothing. It was the defense who was holding us in this game. And it's, I don't know. There's like, I'm trying to think of positives. Are the positives of this game or what? I can think of 2. We have a punter. And I don't even want to say that, I don't want to praise him because he had a really bad game, but it's nice as a Bears fan. And I know Ghost of Judah Tribe's not going to like me saying this, but the one different thing about our quarterback situation is usually we have a quarterback that stinks for 4 quarters. Very rarely, and this includes the predecessor, do we have a guy who may stink during the game, but all of a sudden can turn it up a notch in the fourth quarter, in the last couple drives when it actually matters. And let's be honest, that's what Caleb did today. Now granted, he should have been there earlier. I called him out earlier that he should have connected on some passes, but with the pressure at the end of the game, he came through. And so that has me feeling a little bit better. And that's what I was going to have as my main talking point when I knew we were going to record this show, thinking foolishly that we had pulled off a miracle with taking a victory from Washington. So those are the only positives I can think of.
And I think that's fair. And I will say this, Ghost of Judah Tribe says, put in Bajent. We need 4 quarters, not 1. They went 2-2 last year against a very peasant level schedule with Tyson Bajent as quarterback. Not saying he's a bad football player, but he's not better than Caleb. This is not a Caleb problem, this game. This is a lot of things problem. Some of it is Caleb, but he's not the only one responsible here. And, you know, again, to me, there's one play that separates this whole game. The Bears defense did their job at the end of the day. They held them to 12 points for most of the game. That's great. That's fantastic. Yes, the offense sucked. They got it done when it mattered most. It came down to one play when the focus was lost and this team just let it slip away. And yes, it's going to be on highlight reels the rest of the season, people. I'm going to hate it just as much as you do. So will Sonny. But they were still right there. And I think that's what pisses me off the most about this entire game is I sit here and I think about our upcoming segments. Sonny as baddest man, nicest man. I got a lot of nice men right now because you couldn't close the game when it mattered most. And that's what's most frustrating.
We talk about, it's not just one play, right? Even, should we go ahead and start talking about this Doug Kramer play? What happened there? Like, what was the thinking behind a play like that?
Too cute.
Too cute. Like, Doug Kramer has been, and reasonably, I'm okay with it, celebrated for the role that he's been playing this season for our team. A guy who clearly isn't good enough to be an offensive lineman in the league has found a role on this team. And you know what? It's been working. But as you said, you're getting too cute with it. Stop asking him to do things that he's probably never done in his life. Practice doesn't count. I don't care how many times you run the play in practice. I almost feel bad for the kid because what's the point of Roschon Johnson on your team if not for that play? That's literally why he's on your team, to squeeze in and get you 2-3 yards and the touchdown.
Yeah. And he pays off late too. That's what is even probably more frustrating, right? We do get to see the Roschon touchdown. It's like, wow, there he is. That's why he's on this team. And then it doesn't matter in the end because of how things play out. Sonny, are you ready to talk about baddest men and nicest men if you have it in you?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here we go.
The baddest man.
I think there's only one player that I personally can come up with on either side of the ball, truly in this game, Sonny. I know we usually focus on an offensive and a defensive baddest man, but I only have one baddest man. He plays the offensive side of the football. DeAndre Swift had a good game.
Yeah.
You been banging the table for DeAndre Swift and what he has done, especially since that Los Angeles Rams game. I went out and traded for him in a dynasty fantasy football format. He has paid dividends to me already today, got me a big win to get me back in the playoff picture. DeAndre Swift is having the type of effect that Bears fans, I think, hoped he would. And that Q has kind of banged the table for. He's doing it. He's getting it done. 129 yards on the ground today, rushing. You add in, he didn't even need to add anything passing. 18 carries, 129, and a touchdown, 7.1 yards per carry. That gets the job done. And to me, he's the baddest man because he got his job done. He kept this team in the game, and unfortunately, things went south when they did.
I mean, there's only two players. The only one, and I said it earlier, but I mean, Torrey Taylor had 7 punts with an average of 48.7 yards per punt, leaving 5 of them in the opponent's 20. Another guy who did his job. The problem is that's the one guy we don't necessarily want him to be doing his job so frequently. But, he pulled through, and that's why you draft a punter as high as you did. But outside those two, the box scores may say one thing, but there's no one else on that team that really deserves any sort of, positive affirmation at this point. I'm over it.
I think that's totally fair. With that in mind, let's keep the things moving.
The nicest man.
Sonny, the nicest men are the defensive backfield, tipping it casually up into the air for Mr. Noah Brown, because that's how this game ended. I have nothing else left. If you want to be nice to your buddy, pick him up from the airport, as Q says. Make sure he has what he needs when he moves into his new house. There's nothing better than what the Bears defensive backs did tonight. Tipping the ball up into the air for an unsuspecting Noah Brown to just handle it and be hero of the football game. Sonny, do you disagree? Do you have another person that could be your nicest man?
No. I'm just going to be more specific, and that's Tyreek Stevenson. He's the one who gave up that that big play early in the first half that led to the Washington Commanders touchdown. He was chirping back and forth with McLaurin all game long. He got us that stupid penalty where he put his finger in the mask of, I think it was their offensive lineman or something like that. And then the clip that's going viral right now, at the end of the game, when the ball's about to get snapped for that Hail Mary, Tyreek is out there chirping at the crowd. And what makes it worse is if you really look at this play, we almost would have rather him continue chirping at the crowd, because he's the guy who comes in to that huddle. The ball touches his hands and gets deflected to the Washington Commanders wide receiver. And when you talk about driving a guy to an airport, I'm ready to drive that guy to an airport. Like, there's got to be, he needs to be called out. I hope the coaching staff doesn't let this slide, because I think if they let this one slide, they're setting a really bad tone and example for the rest of the locker room and what they need to do to act like professionals, to act like you expect to win these games. Because his behavior, sure, his box score looks pretty decent when I was taking a look at it, but if there's one singular guy who I have a lot of anger towards right now, it's Tyreek.
And I think that expands beyond just the last play. Every single big play, every big first down conversion for the Commanders, it was targeted at Tyreek. And again, of course, if I was an offense coordinator, I would also throw toward Tyreek because Jalen Johnson is on the other side of the field. But that's where Tyreek becomes even more important to this defense. We've talked about it at nauseum here on Bears on Tap. He is the guy that needs to come up with the big plays. Even if he does have a quote-unquote rough game, and maybe, he has 6 catches for 100 and something yards and a touchdown against him, but if he has that one interception that turns the tide, or the big deflection when we need it most, maybe it's at the end of the game instead of it being tipped up in the air and for a touchdown, that kind of forgives everything. And I think that's where the most frustration lies, is because this is a player that you need to make a big play. And just this game, it didn't feel like he ever got a chance to do that.
Did the opposite. Even if you're not, no one's saying you're as talented as Jalen is, or maybe some of the other defensive backs in that room, but don't make dumb penalties. Don't be a negative when you're out there. Play to your capabilities. If that's not good enough, that's not on you. That's on the coaching staff. That's on Ryan Poles for not upgrading that position. But when you yourself act like a hothead and just make these mental mistakes that cost the team yardage and ultimately at the end, the game, well, now that's on you. That you can't necessarily blame on the coaching staff. You have to take responsibility for that. And I don't know. I didn't get to watch any of the press conference, but I can't wait to see if anyone talks to him, because I'm curious on his thoughts, because I have a lot of questions for him.
1,000%. A lot to be said, a lot to be curious of. Scott says it here a little bit earlier. Zero accountability sometimes for things. He says we need Spider-Man back, that being Kyler Gordon. There's a lot going on in the comment section. And there's a lot of ways that this game could have gone, Sonny, right? You talk about a rookie quarterback, just as Darren says here. I have to remember, Caleb's a rookie. Most rookies, get a couple seasons to learn and then observe before becoming the man. He's getting it done. And it's frustrating because, as Q says here, we look at DeAndre Swift potentially being the best offense.
Q, get out of here. You're not allowed to. Me and Ron are sitting here miserable, and you get the day off? No, you don't get to sit there and wallow at our misery and just type away on your keyboard. No, I don't want to hear from you, Q.
Hey, DeAndre might be the best player on this offense, and I think that's where the struggle is. There's a lot of frustration. There is a lot of frustration here. Sonny, I think we can kind of start to wind things down here. I want to hear from you. How should we feel? How should we as Bear fans? What is your PSA to the Bears community after this game? How do Bears fans get over what happened and still find a way to get up and get ready for Week 9 action, supporting your hometown Chicago Bears?
As Bears fans, we have questions. I want to hear what kind of accountability this coaching staff takes, because the media needs to do their job. The media needs to ask Eberflus these questions that, again, my simple, stupid football brain can come up with. Why do you have 3 timeouts left at the end of the game? Like, why not regroup with your defense and let them know, hey, everyone understand their role? Everyone understand what they have to do? Why, when all you had to do was watch the preview episode of Bears on Tap on Tuesday, you could see how to attack the Washington Commanders when it comes to their defense. Why didn't you do that? Well, why was your game plan just not working? There's a lot of whys. And, I guess now we're kind of at the point where, just to kind of circle back on the point earlier, who are we? Like, are we a good football team? Are we an average football team? Are we a bad football team? I don't think we're a bad football team. I think we can safely cross that part out, because we've seen what bad football teams look like early in the schedule, and we've beaten them. So we're not at that level. So where does that put us? Are we at the average? Are we at the good level? We're certainly not elite. If average or good, what does that mean from a trades perspective? Like, do we go after the NFC North is really good? Detroit beat down whoever they played today. It slips my mind. And it's Tennessee. It's like, I don't know. These are questions that we all have. And yet we were so close to having a smile on our face tonight, Ron, and thinking, hey, 6-2. We may not look good, but you know what? We went up against the second best offense in the league, let them score 0 touchdowns at that point, and we escaped with a victory away. This Bears team could be different. And yet, because of one play at the end of the game, we're sitting here with more questions.
And that is the most frustrating part. It's one play that's going to get everybody thinking differently. Like Scott says here, Bears PSA, don't get up for the letdown. One play is making the difference right now, I think, in the minds of every Bears fan. And Sonny, I think you nailed it perfectly. They had a good game. The defense bent but did never break, allowing 12 points, 4 scoring drives, and they're all field goals. That makes it that's the difference between a 2-possession and a 4-possession game. And all of a sudden, the Bears offense finds a way, get back into it, give yourself a chance. And then it all comes down for naught because of one singular Hail Mary at the end of the game. That's what makes it frustrating. That's what makes it rough. I think that's going to make it a hard week for a lot of Bears fans to bounce back, Sonny, if you ask me personally. But I think at the end of the day, there's still something here that maybe it's just the naive me trying to pretend to be like a positive Bears fan that feels this way. But to me, there's something here with this game that makes me think this felt a little different despite them still losing this game, of like literally one coin flip type play was the difference between them winning a game that they probably shouldn't have and losing a game that they absolutely should have, but they absolutely had the former in the bag before the latter became reality. And that, to me, is the difference in this game.
And again, it's one of those things where, some of you may know, like I cover the Illini every day for Locked On Illini, and, they're having a very good football season this year. And there's one quote that I bring up almost weekly, and that's Brett Bielema, the head coach of Illinois. He said that when he took over the program, that program was used to losing at the end, that they'd make it to a certain point, but they had an expectation that they would fail and that they would lose, and that it was his job ultimately to flip the switch, to put them in a position where when the game matters the most and it comes down to a play, they have that confidence that they're going to make the play and that they're going to flip the switch and they're going to win. That's what we need with the Bears right now. Obviously, we're a better team than we've been in the recent years past, but the question is Eberflus the guy who's going to be able to flip that switch for us? And we feel confident at the end of the game that the guys on the field who are obviously talented, at least mainly in the skill positions, that they're going to be put in a position by the coaching staff to succeed, to flip that same switch. Right now, I just don't know.
And with that uncertainty, I think every Bears fan is right there with you, Sonny. A quick comment here from Dennis Moody says, all we're going to hear about Jalen shredding the Bears defense, when in reality, he did not. And I agree with that. This is a game that we're going to sit here and mull over every single aspect when it's all said and done, because of just how this game felt painful. There's a conglomerate of Bears fans that feel like it's the defense's responsibility. There's a conglomerate that feels it's the offense's responsibility. There's a conglomerate that feels it's the coaching staff's responsibility. Because of that, we're going to sit here and wonder what if until next week. And maybe, just maybe, we'll have a different opinion about this Bears team. Sonny, before we get out of here, I want to remind everybody, of course, Bears on Tap is brought to you by the OnTap Sports Network. Go ahead and check us out over at ontapsportsnet.com and at OnTap Sportsnet on the socials, especially right here on YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit the bell button. You know the drill. You will know when all of our great shows go live, including us here at Bears on Tap, but all of our other ones as well. Blackhawks, Bulls are in full swing. Be sure to check those two shows out. Four Feathers Pod, Bulls on Tap. And, of course, baseball is coming to an end. So there's a lot of discussions to be had about the offseason. Cubs on Tap, Sox on Tap. We'll be back with you here in the coming weeks as free agency is dawning upon with the World Series in view as we stand. OnTapSportsNet.com, at OnTap Sportsnet, on the socials, the OnTap Sportsnet. Go and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. I'm Luce on Tap, the Sonny V here, Mr. Sonny Verma. Sonny, did you have that
Shall we?
shot still on hand?
Yes. I've been waiting. And look, I'm not even going to waste the good stuff on the Bears. But this one is well earned.
Well earned indeed. Hashtag crack 'em. We appreciate everybody joining us. We will be back with a Week 9 preview in the coming days. Until then, we are just going to wallow, I think, in our sorrows here a little bit, Sonny, with a shot. We love the Bears. And hopefully they win next week. Until then, what do you say, Sonny? Bear down?
Bear down.